Welcome to Holistic Upholdings Inner Guidance Series 3, Audio 18, last in the series. And this audio, unlike all the others, is a discourse. So the first one and the last one are more information based. All the other 16 are meditations, visualizations and guidance CDs or nidras. Okay. So all you have to do here is just keep an open mind. Just sit and listen. You don't even have to sit. You can walk around if that's your preferred way. All right. But I do ask that you settle your eyes and your center into your heart space rather than your brain, and that you keep an open mind. Okay. So it's developed this work from a seminar given during a rebirthing training I attended in Vienna back in the 90s by Dhyana Yogi, Seth Bartlett of the USA. And it's helped so many people having this perspective about smoking that I figured this discourse needs to be part of this series. So here we go. Okay. We're basing this on the premise that smoking tobacco can be regarded as a spiritual practice and as one of the most effective techniques to learn unconditional self-love known to mankind. Learning to quit smoking gives one the means to manifest results in one's life. Obviously a most useful and powerful tool. Anyone who can co-create and craft a soul-filled and happy life has indeed learned something very powerful. Let's start to become more conscious of our smoking habit and look at why and when we smoke. The purpose of smoking is fundamentally to suppress certain feelings in the body, certain thought patterns, certain satgans. If you start to notice the times that you like to smoke the most, you may get a clue as to what feelings and patterns you are trying to suppress, trying to keep buried. Usually these are feelings that are overwhelming in some way, and so we try and bury them. Okay. So some people smoke when they feel good about themselves, they notice. So when their energy is high, after good news, when they're wide open, after exercise, yoga, lovemaking, taking drugs, etc. And so if this is you, then it probably means that you're feeling and receiving so much life force and energy flowing through your body and mind that you feel uncomfortable, vulnerable, and out of control. Learning to receive all the joys and the rich flavour of the joys we came to receive on this planet is a big deal. And this is why we do healing. Okay. Because we're not getting the full flavour of life if we've suppressed stuff. It keeps all our energy in. Okay. So by smoking a cigarette, what's happening is, in effect, you're placing toxins into your bloodstream. And here we go, your blood vessels, they immediately shrink. And you have the illusion of clarity. And you have the illusion of control as the blood vessels in your brain shrink. Oh, great. Your energy levels consequently plummet and you feel less vulnerable, safer, and in control again. In that moment, you experience this as a pleasure, because the feelings of pleasure you were having before you lit up were too much for you to receive, were more than what you were used to receiving. Notice the words there, illusion of clarity and control, because these are major factors. Okay. Then some people prefer to smoke when they are feeling particularly bad about themselves, or when they're in the company of other people, socially, or when they feel slightly insecure or nervous or stressed. Other people smoke to wind down after work, after food, in an attempt to switch off the day, switch off the brain, to numb the sensitivity. And so whatever the situation is for you, it is true to say that you're either smoking to feel more at ease at vulnerable times, or that you simply become so completely unconscious in your habit that you just smoke regardless. And the nature of any addictive drugs can lead easily to this. Something is missing until you get your fix, so to speak. Some people, and usually non-smokers, will see smoking as a very destructive way to heal vulnerability, simply because of the toxic and destructive effects on the body. But hey, please, I'm going to remind you of something. Some people can't learn the lessons, which we're about to address in more detail, unless they get addicted to maybe heroin or cocaine, or negative thought streams of patterns of thought, which in turn are destructive to society. So, relative to them, smoking is an easy path. So here's a message to be kind to yourself, and as of right now, as of this moment, stop making yourself wrong for smoking. Ask yourself instead, every time you're about to light up, what would love do now? Try delaying lighting up the cigarette and just breathe instead. Notice what the vulnerability feels like while you're waiting for your tobacco. Feel what it's like in your mind and your body, and notice how long this cycle of vulnerability lasts. Notice, be witness to how long the urge to smoke lasts. Your habit needs your self-inquiry. You need to understand this habit. It's all well and good going down the vape shop and swapping your cigarettes for a vape, but it's not the answer, because you're still getting nicotine, you're still addicted. Okay. You won't learn unconditional love that way. Affirm to yourself now, I am this way. You can even write it on your wrist, I am this way, in order to avoid judging or making your actions or thoughts in any way wrong. Remember, you're on a journey where you're learning unconditional love and self-acceptance. That includes all of it, the good with the bad. Okay. We are human beings. Start your journey of not smoking by creating value from the onset and embracing all the lessons you can and will learn along the way. So be ready to change how you live your life. Stopping smoking is giving a vote for your life. Okay, here's some lessons that myself and other people have noticed when giving up tobacco. Okay. 1. Developing an increased sensitivity in your body. Identifying the cycles of feeling in the body when you're smoking, whether you're smoking, or you're fasting, or craving tobacco. By tuning in, bringing awareness, you are increasing sensitivity, witnessing the pain body. So some people learn more sensitivity in their body from smoking than from any other practice. When you learn not to give into your urges and cycles by continuing not to smoke, you will find that giving up other unwanted habits and stuff is relatively easy. Let me remind us all now that smoking is a highly addictive and possibly the most arduous process to quit. Once you learn for yourself that cycles come and go in the body by the process of self-witnessing and inquiry, you can let go of the fear that you will be in constant withdrawal pain forever. Because this is not the case. Many smokers report that years after they quit smoking, they still get an urge to smoke. And this urge is based upon a cycle of feeling in the body that wants to be pushed down and suppressed because it's uncomfortable. And in truth, it's got nothing to do with smoking at all. Smoking was just the means by which you pushed down the suppressed energy, the suppressed pattern of thinking, the defensive conclusions you made, at a time when something occurred and you felt vulnerable and you learned to squash it. Now that was a technique that you used in order to grow, but it doesn't mean we have to keep them forever. We can wash them away. After years of not smoking, it may be that you don't associate the cycle in your body with smoking, as I've just explained. Just recognise it for what it is, without the attachment of the tobacco idea. See it as a cycle of feeling in the body. Then, once you've disassociated smoking from the cycle, you have a choice. You can either suppress it, the feeling, by eating, maybe, by smoking, by taking a beer, or you can just notice it. You can just breathe through it and let it pass by. And in fact, maybe the surprise will come that this is a very quick cycle indeed. And not worth poisoning yourself about, because there's a reason we're smoking. And the reason, as I've just explained, doesn't stand up. Now, the second lesson is to continue to love yourself unconditionally, whether you're smoking tobacco or not. We learn to love ourselves even amid cycles of self-shame and guilt. And we feel shame and guilt on a spiritual level whenever we're poisoning and harming ourselves and others around us. And that's what we're doing when we smoke tobacco. And we may not be aware that we have this shame and guilt initially, especially when we're being rebellious and young and we just first take up smoking. That's something that goes with smoking. But as one gets older, there's this shame and guilt coming up. I used to say to myself, gosh, here I am like this acrobat dancer, breathing coach, professional breathing coach. And as soon as my client's out the door, I'm in the garden, or not even in the garden, I'm lighting up a roller, and the need to brush my teeth and to trying to hide the fact that I was a smoker became obsessional behaviour. And so the habit of smoking was actually like being a bane. It was an absolute pain. Trying to cover it up, the fact that I smoked around my clients. So, there you go. So, remind yourself you're perfect just the way you are. I am this way. Write it on your arm. Remind yourself. It'll cause you to remember that you are a soul and that you have a body and not the other way around. By continuing to remember that you are a soul embodied, i.e. who you are, you'll also remember that you are a personification of love. And love is patient in all things. And you may just stop beating yourself up accordingly. Through smoking and practicing self-worth simultaneously, you're truly giving yourself the most loving gift that you can. Even when you're feeling ashamed, you're giving yourself the greatest of gifts, the gift of unconditional love. Let that sink in. Okay, we're going to look now at self-healing. So please, I'm going to ask you to start to notice what defensive conclusions you are making in your thinking. And begin to unravel them, get to the bottom of them. And because smoking keeps them down, when you stop smoking, they start to pop up. So, take a journal and write things down. Write all the things that you're making wrong and criticise in your life. all the make wrongs. Okay, by doing this, you can start to see that every situation you called into your life, regardless of how desirable or not it was, and you did it for a reason. By accepting that you are responsible for your life, you step from victimhood into a place of empowerment, which then renders you a co-creator and not a victim of life circumstances. And this is a powerful shift to realise, and it will change everything. And it did for me, and it does for everyone who've moved from this victim to self-empowerment, to taking responsibility for all of it. Okay, not just the good stuff. Living from this premise will change your perception drastically. And this comes with a bit of a warning. Some people get very upset about the law of attraction and can't understand, well, how do we justify the actions of adult Hitler and and all the horrible atrocities of the world? And how do we, if we're a mirror to that, how do we draw that to us, into our world? I'm just going to stop you there and just say, you don't need to concern yourself too much with the collective consciousness of how things are going on, because you can't make changes in that arena, but you can make changes in the arena of your own life. And you can start right now. You can look in the mirror and you can make changes in your own life. It's one of Michael's better songs, that, wasn't it? I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. Anyway, we're not here to sing. Okay, so scapegoats to justify their actions. Yeah. So don't go there with the collective consciousness thing. Just start with yourself. I'm going to give you an example now of a fundamental defensive conclusion. One that we make, one that we believe. It's like a personal lie that we buy into. One is pain follows pleasure. I'll explain. Every defensive conclusion will have a corresponding suppressed emotion associated with it. Okay. The longer you remain unconscious of the suppression and the thought, the more energy you need to keep, and more tension you need in order to keep the feelings or the behaviours down, suppressed, out of sight. Okay. And eventually this will squeeze all the life force out of the part of the body where the tension is stored, and make you ill, make you neurotic, anxious, and may cause you to develop really destructive patterns of behaviour. You'll notice that certain people will push your buttons, and you'll start to act mechanically, react unconsciously. And this I've termed just compulsive behavior. In yoga, they call it samkaras, and these behaviors are so ingrained that they look real. They look very, very real. Eckhart Tolle calls them entities. He calls these thought patterns that develop are so strong that they can take you over. They are entities. The egoic mind can become an entity. So it's best to break them down before they get out of control. Okay. So the source of pretty much all compulsive behaviour could be the opposite of self-love, a form of sort of self-hatred, doing oneself down. So one of the ways we react mechanically is when we feel so alive and we feel so vulnerable at the same time that smoking seems to be the solution. Okay, here's a scenario. When I was in the womb, I was in bliss. My energy body was wide open and I was flowing with love and energy. Then my mother, who was at the hospital, got flooded with anaesthetic and from the doctor or the anaesthetist, and I felt unconscious and dulled during the descent from my mother's womb. Boom, boom. I was born and my lifeline was cut. The cord shouldn't be cut straight away. Should allow the pulse to fall away. Anyway, my first breath was taken in shock, and hurt my lungs. I was torn away from my mother. All was very bright and stark, and my eyes hurt. The volume of the echoes in the hospital were loud, and that hurt my ears. And then I was strung upside down by my ankles as my spine uncurled, and gravity forced me into this elongation. Okay, that's what I experienced. It makes sense that the first ever defensive conclusion that this newborn baby made right there was something like, life is painful, to be alive is not safe, or the pleasure that I was experiencing in the womb is now followed by pain. So we make a conclusion straight away. Pleasure is followed by pain. And it's done not at a great conscious level. It's just sitting there underneath the surface. Or I may have made the conclusion, breathing creates pain. Okay. So in this scenario of anxiety, this anxiety is associated with being wide open and flowing with love and energy. And the anxiety was set up from the very first breath. As rebirthers, we work with this a lot. This is part of our jobs. So not all of us had stressful drug-induced births. Some of us developed our anxieties in infancy. Also at times when we were in a small energy body and we were open and flowing with love and energy, and then someone cut us down. An event caused us suddenly to shut down and stop receiving the fullness of knowing who we truly are as cosmic, unconditional beings with big hearts. So the fullness of cosmic energy available to us was just shut off. And it is worthy of addressing and releasing all this. All of us have our anxieties wound up in different ways in our minds. The conclusions that we draw based on our experience are all different. However, there is an underlying generalization that we can make, and that's all defensive conclusions throughout our lives cause our life force and love to be diminished, and some of our emotions to become suppressed. I find it ironic that we poison our breathing mechanism in order that we can maybe remember unconditional love and self-worth. So in the process of poisoning our breathing mechanism through smoking, we're also, on the flip side, learning this unconditional love and self-worth. So please be patient with yourself. The fourth lesson is about commitment. Okay, learning the true meaning of commitment is truly a most empowering life skill. Once you learn how it works, you can apply it and transfer it to everything in your life and create the results you want. Okay, this is a massive thing. Yogi, who developed this seminar, said that everything he really learnt about commitment came from understanding and noticing his cycles when craving for tobacco. The importance of intention. It is an absolute must to set an intention to not smoke. And you put it in a positive format. You make the intention to be healthy. Yes, to be in a state of true health. And then the smoking will fall away. So the last time I made the intention to give up smoking, I was 100% clear that I'd learned everything I needed to about smoking, and I was ready to let go of it. Yeah. Now, setting an intention and keeping the focus on that tension will show us how to eliminate internal and mental dialogue that pops up. Instead of making decisions which kind of split the mind, you start making real choices at a much deeper level, which create action. And learn the difference now between a phony and a true commitment. Okay, many of us procrastinate and we don't see completion in things. We don't fulfill a cycle. Okay, don't beat yourself up about it. We've explained about cycles and why they get, how we set up patterns where they're not complete and they get suppressed. Okay, with a true and real commitment, there's no internal chat. The mind stops, and the urges come and go so quickly because you're not giving them much consideration, and you just witness them passing by. But with phony commitments, it can literally feel like you're being torn apart from the inside out. Not only does your mind constantly think about what you've lost by not smoking, but your emotions and urges become so intense that it becomes impossible to refrain from lighting up. When your intention is phony, there is far more tension arising in your body from not smoking than there would be if you were to smoke. Okay. You feel like you're missing out or grieving the loss of your cigarettes also. It all gets completely out of hand. When you're not clear about intending to quit, it's hell. Conversely, if you see that you're giving yourself a gift by not smoking, it becomes a pleasure not to smoke. It becomes a pleasure to quit. Not smoking needs to be a true gift from your heart to yourself. Don't do it for another, do it for yourself. Note down the benefits you gained the last time you didn't smoke and remind yourself how good you felt. Accentuate the positive. Allow the smoke to fall away because your body rejects it. So you go to push the cigarette to your mouth and you have one drag and the taste is so horrible you can't go there. Don't do it to prove yourself right or wrong, or just because you said you weren't going to smoke today. Okay, not from willpower. There is enormous benefit from having relapses. So when you do relapse, be kind to yourself and notice your feelings, become witness to your energy cycles. The fifth reason is spiritual purification. When quitting smoking or fasting from tobacco, it helps to be very clear that you're involved in a process of purification, which involves your mind, your emotions, your body and your soul. Making purity your top priority changes everything. Once this becomes your highest commitment, it will show you how to create with your mind in the most powerful way ever. Once in this process, you have all of your life force flowing into your intentions. There is an alignment that makes every single action you take in keeping with your desire to be loved, to be pure, to express the grandest version of yourself. You're doing your soul's work. You're open with your life force, inspiration and unconditional love for humanity. It is from this place that your life takes on a newness. An ease exists that is more about keeping your intentions clear and knowing what you want as a human soul, and less about rushing around trying to figure out how to do everything yourself. You just let go and relax and trust. Don't control how you're opening yourself to wonders. Just know what you want and ask. Okay, I'm going to conclude here by saying that smoking is a double-edged sword. On the dark side, it involves inhaling deadly chemicals in the form of the most addictive drugs on the planet. And on the bright side, it involves learning a spiritual practice that teaches unconditional love and so much more. But only if you eventually give up and quit poisoning yourself. One thing is certain, quitting smoking requires a constant commitment to be healthy and clean. And for most quitters, it is the deepest level of commitment one will ever make in their life, and it will have a knock-on effect. One learns power and willpower and inner strength. One learns about healing and shame. Okay, and one learns eventually to allow the full flavour of life force to operate inside, to feel the full joys and nuances of life, and to be, it's a total gift to be smoke-free and to be pure. And on this note, I'm going to leave you and wish you all the best in your endeavours, and remind yourself to be gentle and kind with yourself in this process. Practice ahisma, non-violence to yourself and others. Namaste, beautiful souls. Remember, you are a spiritual being.